We're delighted that you have chosen to spend this morning with us at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende, wherever you may be joining us from. We are pleased that you are here with us today. My name is Cliff DuRand, and it is my pleasure to be your service leader this morning. I'm a member of the Social Action Committee and the Sunday Service Committee. UUFSMA is a welcoming community. We have members and visitors from the US, Canada, Mexico, and other countries as well. We are comprised of people from various religious traditions, or none. We welcome people from various cultural backgrounds, gender identities, sexual orientation. All are welcome here. We encourage you to bring your questioning mind and your expansive heart to share in fellowship, reflection, and great music. Now for an announcement. Rohanna Lang, a Canadian artist and UUFSMA member, has donated 12 beautifully framed paintings and drawings to the congregation to use as a fundraiser for the minister's discretionary fund. This fund is critical for the minister and community to help members who are in urgent need. Have you bid on Rohanna Lang's wonderful paintings or drawings? Today is your last chance. go to the live bidding portion of our website to make your final offer. Bidding closes promptly at 12 p.m. today, Mexican Central Time. Proceeds from this generous donation will be for the UUFSMA Minister's Discretion Fund. Don't delay. Please, bid right after the service. Link is also posted in the chat box. And here's a news flash. The opening bid is cut by 1/2 on 5 pieces of Hannah Lang's art. Bidding continues on the remaining paintings and drawings. Increase your bid to be sure you get the ones you want. And a special thanks to Rohana for her generosity. We have a couple of her paintings which were also donated by her. After the service, just stay connected. You are invited to join a breakout room to visit with a small group or to remain in the main room for discussion with a larger group and our speaker. Finally, please check the order of service on our website, UUFSMA.org, to see the various events sponsored by the Fellowship. Most of today's service is remote. Actually, all of it. Your speaker, Cesar Arias, has COVID, and I too am quarantining since my wife also has COVID. I hope you are all also being especially careful as the coronavirus surges. And now to Bonney McDowell for our COVID Task Force report.
Good morning. I'm Bonney McDowell with an update from the COVID Task Force. As you all know, I'm sure, COVID cases are at a very high level in San Miguel right now. The very contagious Omicron and the more dangerous Delta variants are both circulating here, so it's important to make smart decisions about your risks. The task force urges you to wear the best mask you have and think very carefully about your exposures. Are you sometimes tempted to let peer pressure persuade you to be more social and less careful? Does the urge to have fun sometimes seem more important than caution? The task force encourages you to help each other find ways to have fun and stay safe. When you're out of the house, keep your interactions outdoors if possible, masked, distanced, and brief. You may have heard that Omicron is mild compared to other variants, but that doesn't mean it's mild for everyone, especially not for those who are older or have additional medical risks. Science also does not know yet if Omicron infections can cause long COVID. It might. The COVID-19 SMA Facebook group recently took orders for rapid antigen test kits at a very good price. These are home tests for your own information, not documents for travel. They can be very helpful, especially if you have cold-like symptoms and want to know if it's COVID. However, we just heard that their shipment is delayed and that many public and private test sites in San Miguel are running out of tests. Supply chain issues, just like in many parts of the world. We can expect increased difficulty getting tests done, and the prices will likely go up too. One reminder we haven't mentioned recently. If you have household help, you can help them get their vaccinations and boosters and insist that they stay home if they or anyone in their household has COVID-type symptoms. Tell them you will pay them to stay home. It's safer for everyone. And that's the goal. Help each other stay safe. Hang in there, my friends. And now back to Cliff for our opening words and chalice lighting. The opening words are by Gregory Pillay.
thirsty. And so we gather together from the ebb and flow of our lives, thirsty for connection to ourselves, thirsty for connection to others, thirsty for connection to the larger life. As we light this chalice, may all who gather here be filled with joy and hope, filled with compassion and love. Here, may we be filled so that we may pour ourselves out into the world. Now, please join in singing, I've Got Peace Like a River.
Please join me in reading the covenant. The words will appear on the screen. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant. Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Good morning. My name is Mark Johaningsmeir, and I'm delighted to be with you today, sharing our joys and concerns. We live in the midst of a very immense universe. But our minds sometimes forget and think that we are hemmed in by others' actions, others' choices in politics, in health crises, in global crises. We think erroneously that we have few or no choices in the midst of that. So each week we use this time to expand our awareness of those around us and how large our world really is. And we share concerns and we express gratitude. We voice hopes. We offer prayers, thoughts, hopes, sadness. We share ourselves. Several concerns have been sent in this week to Reverend Tom Rossiello. And each week when that happens, it is forwarded to people like me who are sharing this day's joys and concerns. If you have a concern or joy, a delight, gratitude, send it to Tom and you'll find his email available. If you have a joy or concern right now and want to share it with the community, you can click on the chat box that you'll see the link at the bottom of the screen. You can write that concern in right there. Others will see that. The words I share now are from the Buddha. May every creature abound in well-being and peace. May every living being, weak or strong, the long and the small, the short, mid-sized, the mean and the great, may every living being, seen and unseen, those dwelling far off, those living close by, may all attain peace. So within yourself, foster a limitless concern for all the world in all its height and depth and broad extent. Manifest love unrestrained, without hate or enmity. Then as you stand or walk, sit or lie down, devote your mind entirely to this. For this is known as living here, the life divine. Our first candle today celebrates Arlena Lawrence and her recovery from COVID and from her fall. She appreciates all the warm wishes and offers of help that she's received from her friends in the fellowship. She's happy to receive any emails at lawrencearlena@yahoo.com. This candle celebrates Dory Beach and her return from having a pacemaker implanted. She says she's doing very well and appreciates all the help and love she's received from this fellowship. This candle is for Marjorie Burren. Marjorie experienced this horrible thing called identity theft. Her identity was stolen. Many of her accounts, including bank and phone, were hacked, and she's working to undo all this damage. It's not an easy task. A candle. A candle in memory of the Buddhist Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who died yesterday at the age of 95 years. He was a young Zen monk in Vietnam who spoke out against the war and all the damage that was happening in his world. He, because of that, was exiled from his country. Martin Luther King Jr. nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. During his exile, he made his home in France, and there he founded Plum Village as a community in which to teach and practice mindfulness meditation and what he called engaged Buddhism. The monastic center and dozens of other spiritual communities that he inspired have drawn thousands of people to his talks and teaching. And there is a Sangha group that meets here each Friday on Zoom. A candle in memory of Jay Jackman, former spouse of Judith Genya. Judith is in California with her children and other family, and it's been a very rewarding experience to be there. She returns on Wednesday. And now 3 issues connected with the pandemic. A candle of concern. For all who are suffering with COVID right now. A candle of gratitude for those who offer them medical care and those who are tending to their needs. And a candle for all of us facing the uncertainties and the daily challenges, the restrictions required to slow the spread of the virus and prevent more suffering and death. And now a candle representing all of the joys and concerns that you carry deep within and which have not been expressed or voiced. I invite you to contemplate your own concerns and those your neighbor holds in these moments of quiet. Amen, and may it be so. A musical meditation follows, performed by Paula.
This fellowship donates over 50% of its budget to a number of fine nonprofit organizations that benefit our Mexican neighbors. Today I want to highlight CEDESA. That's the Spanish acronym for Center for Agricultural Development, but it is about much more than agriculture. It might better be called Center for Human Development. CEDESA is a campesino organization that grew out of liberation theology in the 1960s. For over 50 years, it has been organizing and educating rural people to make it possible for them to stay on the land. It promotes human development, spiritual development, and community empowerment among agricultural producers. Through our grants, we have supported CEDESA's community organizers, called promotoras, who have empowered rural communities. As an example, take Norma Guerrero. She is a young mother whose family was originally from the indigenous community of Ciénaga de Juan Ruiz. But she had lived for a while in a different community where she became involved in a CEDESA group building cisterns and harvesting rainwater. She began to train in health and attended various workshops on harvesting, on backyard production, food processing, beekeeping, production on the plot. When she moved back to Ciénaga, she had to start from scratch, building a new house with the support of her husband in the United States. She rejoined the CEDESA group there and obtained a cistern and dry toilet. Now she has fruit trees and grows vegetables and medicinal plants and is a beekeeper. In 2019, she became a CEDESA promotora and now trains other women in backyard gardening and beekeeping. She is participating in CEDESA's new popular school to become a technician in cisterns and toilets. Through its programs, CEDESA is helping women like Norma Guerrero and others of the poorest of the poor to discover themselves as subjects capable of initiating action rather than as passive objects shaped by their circumstances. Please give generously so that we can continue to support this and our other partner organizations. And now for some cool, clear water with words by Sons of the Pioneers.
All day I faced a barren waste without the taste of water, cool water. Old Dan and I with throats burnt dry and souls that cry for water, cool water, clear water. Keep a moving, Dan, don't you listen, DuRand Dan. He's the devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand with water. Dan, can you see that big green tree where the water's running free and it's waiting there for me and you? The nights are cool and I'm a fool, each star's a pool of water, cool water. But with the dawn I'll wake and yawn and carry on to water. Keep moving then, don't you listen to him then. He's a devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand with water. Then can you see that big green tree where the water's running free and is waiting there for me and you?
The shadows sway and seem to say, tonight we'll pray for water,
Cool water.
and way up there he'll hear our prayer and show us where there's water.
Cool, clear water. Keep a moving, Dan, don't you listen to him, Dan. He's a devil, not a man, and he spreads the burning sand with water. Dan, can you see that big green tree where the water's running and it's waiting there for me and you?
And now a reading from All Life Comes from Water. All life comes from water and needs water to survive. Water moves through the whole ecosystem, nurturing and transforming life as it moves. It rises from the ocean in evaporation, forming clouds in the sky, and blown by the winds, it returns to the land in the form of rain or snow. This precipitation falls into the soil and gathers in streams and aquifers. In the midst of this journey, it also travels through the bodies of every living thing. Every being needs water: insects, birds, mammals, fish, humans. Water also rises up into the stems of plants and the trunks of trees, but none of the water is isolated from the rest. Even our own bodies are part of the watershed. The water goes back to the air or the earth and continues in streams and rivers on its way to the ocean. The cycle keeps going round and round. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. He's a man who needs little introduction. Cesar Arias de Canal has addressed this fellowship many times. He is well known as head of and protector of the botanical garden Charco del Ingenio. He also heads up El Sindicato. A man of many talents, besides being a community activist protecting the environment, he's also a writer and a founding member of Amnesty International's Mexican section. And now, it's my pleasure to give you Cesar Arias.
Hello, it's a pleasure again to be joining the UUF in San Miguel de Allende. I want to express my admiration for your work, for your will, and your philanthropic output that you are doing for San Miguel. I want to dedicate this very short talk to somebody who you might know, who died about 2 months ago. Her name is Holly Yasui. She was Japanese American born, but Mexican by election. She worked a lot regarding the theme that we're going to talk about, which is the watershed. She collaborated with CEDESA in Dolores Hidalgo, with El Charco del Ingenio, where she made a lot of works through the years. And finally, she made the translation of the text, which is the base of this talk about the watershed, the Independencia watershed, and all related to the aquifers. So, Holly Yasui, you are in our hearts. Well, anyhow, this theme, as you know, it's not something new. It's something we have been talking about, water. But I would like to focus the theme of water on the watershed, because the watershed is something we cannot avoid. We live in watersheds. Even the the faraway desert, the flattest land has a watershed, and if we leave one watershed, we get into another one, and our life, it's the natural geographic unit in which we live is the watershed, and not only geographic, cultural, because all the dynamics of society happen within a watershed. And nevertheless, we have a very, very poor consciousness, awareness of this being part of a watershed. This has been a tremendous concern personally. Not yet, please, Wizard, Diego, not yet. The maps are going to be a little further, please. Okay, well, I keep on. Well, the watershed is the unit, is our place, no? And so in El Charco del Ingenio, we have been very aware, because we belong to a watershed that gets affected by floodings, by droughts, by fires, by everything. And so that's why we were more and more interested, the staff and the board of El Charco del Ingenio, and we have been working a lot. Our new interpretation center, that we are still working on it, and I hope to open it soon, is going to be focused precisely in the watershed. No, so now we live in. It's difficult to conceive the watersheds because they are like stratified, complex realities. No, we belong to a wide watershed in Mexico, which is the Lerma Chapala, which comes from a basin that comes from the edges of the Valley of Mexico and ends in the Chapala Lake. And within this giant, enormous watershed, there are other stratified watersheds like subsidiaries or belonging to this watershed. The one which I'm going to call the attention is about the sub-watershed, or a big watershed, which is the Independencia Basin, or the Independencia Aquifer, which belongs now, if the wizard can put the map, that would be very clear for the explanation. No? It belongs to the big watershed Lerma Chapala, but it's located in the north of Guanajuato. This is a very wide area which comprises about 6 or 7 municipalities, one of them San Miguel de Allende. And so this giant watershed is being called the Independencia, or the Upper Rio Laja, or the Laja River, the Upper Rio Laja River, which is a very wide basin that receives the water from many ranges and many mountains, and they all gather in the center of the watershed and arriving in the Presa Allende, in front of San Miguel de Allende. So if, Wizard, if you could please put the map that you were going, that's it. You see, you see here, you can see the map of Guanajuato to the right, upper right, no, within Mexico. It's a central part of Mexico. And that the Independencia watershed belongs to precisely to the northern side, which is a semi-desert. It's not like the Bajío region, which is more humid. No, this is a very, very dry, semi-desert area. So many municipalities belong to this watershed, and it corresponds also to an aquifer. Because you see, the effects of what happens in a watershed is anything that happens in a part of the watershed affects the other one, and not only downstream, but only underwater. No? So the case of the Independencia watershed, to which we belong, San Miguel de Allende, it's very clear. If you can, please, Diego, scroll or do a zooming, that's it, you see? No, not yet. No, the one above of the Independencia watershed, please. Yes, if you can simply make a zoom and scroll it down a little so people can see it. Because now there's an image that is blocking there it is. So you can see that black spot corresponds to the north of Guanajuato, which corresponds to the Independencia aquifer, which is something we have discovered that we belong to one single aquifer. So all this area has been submitted to a tremendous stress of extraction of water, mainly for agricultural or agro-exportation reasons, especially after the first NAFTA. There was a fever of exportation of vegetables from humid lands like broccolis and spinach and things like that, but planted in a semi-arid region as it is the north of Guanajuato. It was disastrous because all the superficial water was totally depleted. So we had to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then we got the fossil layers, very old, geologically old layers, and these layers are in contact. The water in these layers is in contact with minerals which are harmful for the health, like arsenic, like fluoride, like many others, even mercury, even lead, even a lot of minerals. No? So, but this greed, this tremendous obsession about exportation of 85% of the water extracted goes to irrigation, totally irrational irrigation of this kind of crops that go for exportation. But there's a little left for the human consumption or for a domestic or a traditional agriculture. Also, the cattle grazing and everything pulls a lot of this water. Anyhow, this Independencia watershed has several sub-watersheds. Now, if Diego, could you please scroll down the image? You see this wide Independencia watershed. If you see in the lower part, there's a sub-watershed, which I want to stress a lot, because this is you see the Independencia, the flowing of the water in this basin. The last part is the Presa Ignacio Allende, la Presa Allende. And so all the water spilling superficially from this area goes to the Presa Allende. But there's one sub-watershed which is subsidiary to the Presa 2, which is the one which is in the red color, which we call Tambula Picachos. You know, the Picachos mountains, we know very well because they are our mountain ranges. And the Tambula, they are two extinguished volcanoes, and La Márgara. So they really conform this basin. And this is the water that comes, it's interesting for us, is the water that comes to San Miguel. So if you can scroll down a little more, Diego, please. You see all the municipalities, and the last one at the very bottom is San Miguel de Allende. There it is. This is the Tambula Picacho subwatershed. You can see clearly the Presa Allende. You can see San Miguel, which is the red color. And then you can see the Charco del Ingenio. And it's important to mention the Charco del Ingenio because all the water that comes from this watershed, or most of it, let's say 90% of the water, goes through the canyon of El Charco del Ingenio, enters San Miguel de Allende through Las Cachinches arroyo or creek or river, and then goes through the Cachinches to the Presa Allende. This is extremely important because this is one of the sub-watersheds that is being under a tremendous stress, but we belong in San Miguel de Allende to this sub-watershed. When we said that our cultural life or the dynamics of our society happens within a watershed, we can say that our watershed is precisely the sub-watershed Tambula Picachos, which is stratifying, is divided in micro watersheds, about 9, from which 7 of them, they go through El Charco del Ingenio. That's why when we have tremendous rains in the rainy season, our monsonic rains, suddenly we have these floodings, these tremendous volumes of water passing through El Charco del Ingenio and entering San Miguel de Allende. This is more or less the structure. I hope I have been clear enough. So then we are going to pass to another map, which is more clear. So please, Diego, if you pass it to that, that's it, you see? You see clearly there San Miguel, Presa Allende, the Volcano, the Picachos Volcano, the Tambula Volcano, and then the mountain range of La Márgara. And there's a big slope to the north, and that's a totally closed basin that all the water gathers in the center, in the main arroyos. There are about 6 arroyos that go straight to El Charco del Ingenio and to San Miguel de Allende. No? It is extremely important that the process of deforestation, soil removal, erosion, open more agricultural areas, creating industrial parks, like the one you see in the circle in the middle, which is an industrial park located in the worst place ever imagined, because all the water goes to San Miguel. Imagine the polluted waters. And if we stop all the destruction of the ecosystem here, then we could start to recover this important sub-watershed. No? If we go make a little bit of history, we can see that San Miguel de Allende was inhabited since the pre-Hispanic times, not as the official chronic sect that the Spanish arrived and made it the first town in San. No, that's not true. It was a totally populated area because there were a lot of water. There was a lot of water. There were springs all over the place. In all this watershed was full of springs. There was perennial water flowing in the 16th century. That's why San Miguel de Allende, who was never a mining town, that's a big lie, it was an industrial town, was developed in the 16th century because the power of water became the industrial power for graining, for milling grains, and for beating the wool that was one of the most important industries in San Miguel de Allende. So from the 16th century to the 18th century, San Miguel became a powerful industrial town in the New Spain. After the independence, and that influenced a lot the political movements that happened in San Miguel, because there were schools and there was a lot of movement, and that's why San Miguel de Allende became so important for the revolution, for the independence from Spain. And all this 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, there was a decline of this power, the industrial power of San Miguel, notoriously. And when what we know as Green Revolution that came in the 50s, and they started with new technologies to drill, you see, because they started drilling the wells, and so all the springs started to get totally depleted, no? And that's why we started to go deeper and deeper, and we lost our natural sources. You wouldn't believe that in the urban area of San Miguel, the only spring which is alive is the one which lies in the bottom of El Charco del Ingenio. Even the Cieneguita spring has died, and we lost El Chorro, which was the fountain of life for San Miguel for 4 centuries. We lost it 20 years ago. So this is a process of destruction, and slow, and we are not so aware of how we have lost the water from our watersheds. No? So it is important to have this historical view, because it gives us an idea of how the destruction of our aquifers and watersheds have happened in San Miguel. It is important to say that all this destructive process can be reverted. And that's why El Charco del Ingenio is committed to make this environmental education process in order that the new generations become aware of the importance of living in a watershed and the possibility to rehabilitate the watershed. Because we can do it. We can rehabilitate the watershed through but it has to be a collective process, a community process. Not only the governments have shown themselves totally useless, really, by themselves to solve the problems, because they prioritize the exportation of these vegetables to the United States and everything. But it has to be the communities who start to empower themselves in something that we call an integral management of a watershed. This, which we have been talking very locally, is a matter, something happening in the planetary sense, no? And all the problems you are seeing, all these tragedies of migration, we can see all the Central American and Haitians and from crossing Mexico trying to go to the United States, is a consequence of this devastation of our watersheds, plus the climate change process that have been expelling people from their own countries, their own communities, and looking for a better way of life. But this is becoming critical, and it's going to be more and more critical in the future years. No? So I would end saying, let's work hardly to create an awareness of the importance of watersheds, water, and aquifers. And I think with this, I would finish my talk, and I would love to have some questions and comments that you would like to make.
And now please join in singing our hymn, Blue Boat Home. The words will appear on your screen.
Standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. thanks to the waves upholding me. Hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me. Sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
And now, as I extinguish the chalice, well, actually it's a candle, I leave you with these words of wise advice for our present troubled times. Go in peace. Live simply, gently, at home in yourselves. Act justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers, and stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance. Speak with truth or speak not. Take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves, and go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your heart. Now, go and make peace, but stay connected after our postlude to visit in chat rooms or stay in the main room for discussion with Cesar Arias.